Yo, uh, give me a second. My camera's not working. What up, Orson? Appreciate it. What? Hmm? Hmm. Hey, how you doing? Yo, what up, Valley Lobos? Thanks for subbing. How you doing? A lot of people. Nah, that'd be crazy.
Have you
Hey
ever had a
everybody, Dr.
personal
G
Oh,
here.
jeez, sorry about that. Welcome to the stream. Appreciate everybody for dropping in. My name is Bjorn. What up, Dreamlast? How you doing? I'm just a chill guy. I be multi-streaming on Kick and YouTube. The game that I'm playing is Tarkov. I'm playing some Tarkov. But the site that I referred to, Kick, it's a streaming platform like Twitch, except they don't have nearly as many um, loopholes that streamers have to jump through, and streamers get 95% of all of the donations or like subs and stuff. Like it's like $5 a sub, and the content creator gets like $4.95. So they give us a pretty good portion. How's everybody's night going? Did you guys watch the Super Bowl? I didn't. Who won? What was the score? You got questions for me? Let me know. I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Again, I appreciate everybody for being here. Whoever's here. Dream, Orson. I appreciate people who are active in the chat. Yeah, I felt that. I don't. It's just bread and circus. You know what I mean? I was actually out door dashing, trying to make a couple bucks. What do you guys do for work? Let me know. Just looked it up. The Seahawks did win somehow. Well, I mean, not really somehow. Tom Brady doesn't play for the Patriots anymore, so probably not going to win a Super Bowl anytime soon. From Tampa, so go Bucks. If I had to root for a team, that's who it would be. Something that Kick Chat has that YouTube Chat doesn't are text-to-speech commands. So if you were to go watch me over on Kick, you could do !yell or !Bjorn, and you'd be able to have some sort of text-to-speech done over. I'd hear it. It'd play on the chat or through the stream too. Those who have played Tarkov, I don't really have to explain what's going on. But for those who've never played, there are rooms with epic loot called marked rooms. I'm on my way to one right now. No, that guy didn't just try to shoot at me. But yeah, Dream, if you go into the chat on Kick and you do !yell or Bjorn, followed by a space and then whatever you want to say, that's how you get the command to work.
Contact!
Oh shit. Crazy how many bodies are already in here, man. What's up, hun? Huh? So no, it is going to be for Kick. If people want me to spin the wheel, they have to subscribe over on Kick. Also, I don't have any type of system like that set up for YouTube at the moment. Motherfucker got dropped. Yes, that's junk. Fuck, man, there's a lot of scabs. They don't want me to get into that marked room, huh? They're pressing me hard. We're a PMC, I should say. Grenades. Thank you. Need that. We got in there more PS rounds. Those are junk. Another one. Bro, that's why you got fucking dropped. This is my third use of the key, of this key. Not a whole lot. First, the vehicle's not here either. Wonder where 80s went. Homie said he's gonna go check out the kick. Just heard a scab or something.
Сука, ёбнули нашего! Давай, бля, перца, щеми!
I didn't know what the hell that guy thought he was gonna do. I just get shot, I guess. .762-39 BP is not a friendly round. It's pretty spicy. Hence most armor. Ow, bro. I'm already by the exit. I might as well just walk over. Fuck am I? Yeah, I am.
Bjorngardson says, Ligma.
Where did the suppressor go? Hmm. It's a scan. Dang, I had like 26 viewers at the start of the stream. Now I got one. That I started with 26 viewers and now I got one. And it's me. Two viewers, hell yeah. One of them is me. No, I just have them paused. Hmm? Huh? Hmm? I think I forgot my vape in the car. You pulling like a chameleon tactic where like you stop moving, you're not seen, like you're camouflaged or something? I don't think that's how it works. You're gonna clap your own cheeks later? Yeah. That's what I thought. You want them, you want me to clap them cheeks.
Check your front pocket first.
I'm pretty sure it's still in the door.
What you said last time.
No, it's definitely in the door. You know, it's fine. I don't wanna hurt my chest right now. It hurts my lungs whenever I hit it. Hmm?
Да нихуя тут нет никого!
I gotta piss super bad, so I'm just gonna extract. Look, I gotta piss, I gotta piss, I gotta piss, I gotta piss, I gotta piss. Oh, so bad. Oh, no, William. Oh.
Nada más, nada más.
Clinical and forensic psychologist, as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing whether or not Jeffrey Epstein could still be alive. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. What we're going to be analyzing today are documents from the Epstein files that raise the question whether or not Jeffrey Epstein could still be alive. Yes, I am as shocked as you are that I am analyzing this and that this is the subject of this video, but I'm going to give you some very compelling reasons why I felt this was necessary. Ever since I started analyzing the Epstein files, I've had people commenting that he in fact is not dead, that he didn't die on August 10th. It's not something that I ever took very seriously until I started looking at some notes that were found in his prison cell. The picture you're looking at right now is actually part of a detailed escape plan. I'm going to walk you through step by step what all of this means. I've gone through and translated all of this, and by the time we're done, you'll understand why I find this so compelling. All right, let's just jump right in. For the sake of context, we're going to look at a few pictures before we actually get to the escape plans, but I think this will help you understand why they're so compelling and where they were found. Now, if you look at this right here, this is L tier. He was housed in what's called the SHU, the Special Housing Unit. L tier was the unit where he was housed. He was on the right side of this unit. He was the first door on the right. Now, as we open that door, as we go in, you can see it's disgusting, just covered in blankets, covered in sheets. And as we go down, there's part of, this was not the noose that was actually found on him. So we still don't know where that is, actually. But although that's part of it, this is part of what was found where he was the next morning. Now, the most interesting part of this cell, at least for what we're talking about today, are some notes that were found. Here's one note. Here's the second note, and that's the one I showed you at the beginning. And here is a third note. And this, I think, is actually the other half of the piece of paper up here. Now, these pictures had actually been released before. I knew that there was a note, but I was never able to read it because this was the angle, this was the shot that we had. And there was no amount of zooming in that could make you see more than a couple of letters here and there. It was impossible to translate, impossible to make sense of, but I was always curious what it said. So what kind of notes was Jeffrey Epstein writing in his cell? I really wanted to know. Well, fortunately now we have the answer. Now, when you first look at this, it just looks like a mess. It's probably very, very difficult for you to read, so I've gone through and translated it. We're going to look at that in a second, but I wanted you to get a chance to see this. One of the things that's important in terms from a handwriting perspective is that I think that Jeffrey Epstein is a very impulsive person. He has really scribbly, bad handwriting, but most of it can be translated. I was able to read most of it, and once we really see all of this in context, you're going to understand why I'm calling it an escape plan. So the way that I've done this is I've gone through and typed out the words on top of this so you can see what I think it all says. And then I moved the words so it was next to them so you can see the word right next to what I think each one means so that you can decide for yourself if you agree with my assessment or if you think it actually means something else. So first, let's go through. I'm going to explain what all of this means. The translation I have here, I am very confident in. If there's anything that I'm less confident in, I will tell you. I will point out things that if I'm not sure what it says or if I'm not certain that's what it says. But if I typed it out here, I'm overwhelmingly sure that this is correct. Now, I'm going to explain what everything means. And once I'm done with that, then we're going to go through and I'll let you make your own determinations if you think that I got it right. So I'm going to start with what was most obvious to me, the thing that drew my eye first, where it says red notice, and I put equals EXT. Now, if you don't know what a red notice is, that's an alert that Interpol puts out if there is a fugitive on the loose. If there's someone that is internationally wanted, a red notice notifies agencies that if this person is found, then you extradite them back to the country where they are being looked for. So that's why it says red notice equals EXT. So if there's a red notice out for him, then he will be set up for extradition. That was my first clue that if we're looking at all of this in context, that he was planning on getting out of the country. That was his goal by writing all of this down. Now, from the red notice, there is an arrow pointing back up to this main circle right here. So that means that if he's MIA in the U.S., in other words, if he's missing, so this would be shorthand basically saying he's missing. For anybody that's watching this that isn't from the U.S., I'm going to try my best to explain various acronyms the way that we would do them here. So MIA would be a way to say that he's missing. So if he's MIA in the U.S., then a red notice would occur. Then a red notice would be set out by Interpol. That's what that arrow means. But if we're to look at this circle, right, MIA US, let's look at some of the various branches of this. So visas would suggest that he's going to be planning on going out of the country. He would need to fake his name. It would have to be fake visas, but he would need visas. Something I guess he was considering is that he wrote no rights, so it could be depending on the country he goes to, his rights might be different. Interestingly, he wrote tourism here. Now, if he was planning on leaving the country, whether or not he would be posing as a tourist or whether or not he would be going to places that have tourism, there's some consideration about tourism because I'm pretty certain that's what that says. It either says tourism or tourist. His handwriting is so bad. You'll see in a second where the confusion is there. Now, up here it says EXT tax. It could be EST tax, but I think that what this is estate tax. So in other words, if he is to die, how much money goes to estate tax, or that he's considering the estate tax right here. Another branch has banks, so obviously something that he's going to have to consider if he's going to have access to money. Now, here's one that I am somewhat less confident in, is that there's a name written here with dollar signs next to it. I put a question mark because I don't know what letter that is, but it does look like BLCH, like NIL or something like that. But this is very clearly a name and clearly associated with money. And below that, you can see it says guards. It says guards clear as day. That is 100% what this says. So whether or not that means that he needs guards, whether or not that has to do with prison guards, that's unclear, but that is very clearly stating guards right underneath this name and the dollar signs. So if we're to look at the top portion of this, if he is MIA, if he is missing, a red notice will occur. He needs to keep all of these other things in mind. These are all things that he is thinking about. Now, if you look in the top left here, you see a number of letters, M and then R with a line to T with a line to M. And then above that, it looks like either a C or an L and then a dot and then a T. I didn't label those, but I think that that's what that says. So the question is, are these different tiers within the prison where he is? Because he's in L tier, M tier is below him. Are these people's names that he's connecting from one to the other? We don't have enough information for that to be clear, but I just want to point this out. So if later on, when we get more information, if somehow that makes more sense, we're going to circle back and we'll address that. Now, underneath red notice, he wrote K equals exclamation point, exclamation point. My interpretation of that is he considering whether or not, if he's dead, will there not be a red notice? Or if he gets away with him being dead, is there no red notice then? Because there are 3 exclamation points. I typed that out exactly as it's written. To the right of that are the initials LSR. And I say initials because I assume that's what those are. I couldn't find anybody in the Epstein files with those initials, or at least typing them out by those initials. I'm not sure who he might know that has those initials. When I show it to you in a minute, maybe you interpret the letters differently because his handwriting is so bad. But I feel with a high degree of confidence that that says LSR, and I don't know what that means, but it's very clear. Now, interestingly, underneath guards over here on the right, he wrote government, and I believe this says clear. So government clear. That's my best read on the second word. 100% certain it says government. I'd say 70% certain that it says clear. My interpretation, he's looking for a government where he would be clear to go. Now, interestingly, if we go back to the left, underneath LSR, it says Muslim. Now, obviously, he's Jewish, so the question would be, why is he writing Muslim? I interpret that as where he might be ending, where he's thinking about going, where he might end up. Right below it, it says AS. You could consider that Arabic states potentially, or Arab states.
What, honey?
If we go a little bit lower,
Yeah, they're outside.
I know this
They
is
wanted to go back
confusing.
outside.
This
Let
is
them
hard
out.
to follow. There's so much, but I'm trying to get the flow of how he thinks about this. Because down below we see Q-SA. Now, there's a lot of different ways you could interpret that. Q could be a question. I think of this, if it's below Muslim and AS, it could be Qatar, Saudi Arabia, or Qatar to Saudi Arabia. That's the way I interpret those letters, because he is a very well-traveled person. He knows people pretty much everywhere. So these are not out of the question as far as what these potential initials could mean. Now, to the right of that, he wrote Nigeria with an exclamation point and underlined that. So now that is a country that does extradite to the U.S. So if we're to assume that Qatar and Saudi Arabia are identified, obviously there's Nigeria. These all seem like possibilities, places that he could consider going. So to summarize what we've got so far, we've got a long way to go. At this point, he's been thinking about if he's missing in the U.S. and it's found out that he's missing, then a red notice would be applied. He would need to have all of these other things in place. If we're to go back to the left a little bit, where it says red notice, if you look below that, it says the name Mara, question mark. Now, unfortunately, I, for the life of me, cannot figure out what it says below that. It says enlist, maybe? It's so unclear. That looks like an E, an N. It's impossible to read that next letter. It looks like an S and a T. So my best guess would be that it says enlist. But that's with a very low degree of certainty.
Well, honey?
Now, I assume Mara is a name and not code for something else like Mar-a-Lago. I'm sure some people are going to go there,
Yeah,
but that would be
it's
strange because there's 2 R's, and that's not really how Mar-a-Lago is spelled. But he is writing in code to some extent. So keep in mind, Mara may not be as literal as it seems. Maybe it isn't literally somebody's name. Maybe it literally is. But that's one of those things we're going to earmark, and as I continue to analyze other files in later videos, maybe we'll circle back to that. And this, I can't read any of it. It looks like it says LSR again, but it's such a low degree of certainty I didn't type it on there. It's completely illegible. So I have to mark this off as something where I can't truly translate any of that. Now, below that, it clearly says gangsters, and below that, it clearly says extort and kidnap. So we're going from red notice, and below that it says Mara, something illegible, gangsters, then extort, kidnap. Now, what this line of thought is, I don't know if he's concerned that could happen if he ends up in the wrong country, but there's clearly some train of thought here, starting with Mara and ending with extort, kidnap. Now, if we're to go all the way to the left, to me, this looks like the name Nicole. Now, that, once again, that's not with a high degree of certainty, but I can't think of anything else that would fit there. Who Nicole is anybody's guess. There are probably people named Nicole in his orbit. There are probably multiple people named Nicole in his orbit, so I'm not going to guess it as a specific person, or I'm not going to guess who it is. Sure, it's a specific person to him, but I'm not going to speculate as to which Nicole this might be. Above that, my interpretation of this picture right here is that I believe this is a little map of the United States. That's what it looks like, just a weird little sketch of the United States and a squiggly thing coming out of it. So to me, that looks like a map. And the lines may just be the bars of being in the prison cell. So there's not as much meaning in that part. Now, below that, it says island and people. Now, he's lived on an island. Whether or not he wants to end up on an island, this is somewhat less clear, but those are very clearly the words that are written. So I'm not going to try to interpret too much about what that means because it's its own separate idea. But now I want you to focus on the right side again. Now, on the right here, we see it says jet-US prop. Now, what that means is that he's thinking about whether or not the jet that he would be traveling in is U.S. property. Epstein and his associates were obsessed with aircraft registration, jurisdiction, things like that, and that's what jet-US prop would be. He's thinking about whether or not the jet he's traveling in is, in fact, U.S. property, because that does change some things jurisdictionally, as well as whether or not there's seizure and all of these other potential issues that could come up. So the fact that he's thinking about that is important. What else is important is that jet-US prop was written in a different color. Most of these were written in blue ink. Jet-US prop was written in black ink. Now, the reason that matters is that means that this was enough of a plan that where he wrote it out and he came back to it. It wasn't just sketched out and thrown away. He came back with additional thoughts later on. Now, below that, you can see this little scribbled box with the word Brad on top. I'm going to scroll up so you can see it without my comments on it. So you see it's a little square with a little building next to it, and on the left, I interpret this as an airplane. At least I believe that's what it is, or it could be additional buildings. But it very, very clearly has the word Brad written on top. And then below it and to the right of it, you see what I interpret as supposed to be where cars and planes are parked. I think this right here is a little airplane. So when I saw this, I immediately thought it looked like a private airport, because this shape and design of the building is unusual. Airports are low and they're large. It's a very distinct look. So I was curious what the closest private airport is. The closest private airport to where he was is Teterboro. It also is one of the busiest. I was curious if he'd ever actually been there, so I typed it in the Epstein files, and it showed that it's been mentioned about 7,000 times. So this is definitely one he's familiar with. It does seem to resemble at least this style of airport. I'm not insisting it is this one, but it certainly looks quite a lot like it. So if nothing else, this lends credence to the idea that this building he's drawing is a private airport. He is thinking about getting to a private airport based on everything else he's saying and getting out of there. And the name Brad is associated with that. Who that is that a pilot? Is that somebody who would help him get there? That's unclear, but the name Brad is very, very clearly written on top of that airport. And you may be thinking, well, he's just fantasizing about escaping, and that may be part of it. I think the unusual aspect of that is that he would put a specific name with it, that he would write a name on top of the airport. Now, as far as I know, Brad does not stand for anything. It's not an acronym for anything. I take that in a very literal sense as a name. Now, as you can see right here, a portion is redacted. All we can see is that something was underlined. I would absolutely love to know what this said, because something here is very important because it's underlined many times. But if we're to look to the right of that, it said medical/PT. Now, the way I interpret that, PT typically is shorthand for patient. It very clearly says medical. So the question would be, is that how he's thinking about being transported, as a medical patient? Possibly. So if we're to scroll down a little further, we see G/computer PB, some question marks, then VI. Now, immediately when I saw this, I knew what this was referring to. PB is Palm Beach, VI is Virgin Islands. So if we're wondering what has something that he is worried about on it or something he's thinking about, it's the computer in Palm Beach. That's the one with the question marks. And just to be clear, so you know that that's actually how he would refer to his computer, I took a snippet from an email from Ghislaine Maxwell. Why do I have no sound on this computer? And then it has PB in parentheses next to it because that's referring to the Palm Beach computer. So this is literally how they refer to these computers. Now, as far as the G/ goes, I interpret that, and this is my best guess. I'm trying to tell you what I think is a guess versus what seems more clear. I'm guessing that that somehow is in reference to Ghislaine Maxwell. So as far as where this PB computer is, I would assume that she is in fact the one who has it. So if we start looking at this in total, it becomes very clear that there is a very detailed plan of escaping, and he is actively trying to figure out where he would want to go, how he would get there, and what he would do. Just so you can see for yourself what some of these various words say. I'm going to show you some of the more questionable ones. You can see if you have a different translation. But as we look at this, I put all of the words next to, above, or below my translation so you can see for yourself, see whether or not you think that's actually what it says, or if you have a different interpretation that somehow makes more sense. But I've read a lot of his handwriting. I do feel confident in anything that I actively translated that that's in fact what it says. Now, there is one part that I feel unclear on, and I didn't reference, which is this part right here. It looks like it says Healthline or Heathrow or something that starts with Heath. But it's so hard to read, I don't want to present a potential interpretation because all four of these are right next to each other, and I think they would all be based on getting these right. And this is the one part that feels very uncertain to me. So if you have any thoughts about what this says, the one below it looks like it says press or press T. And then after that, it looks almost like it says 3 hits or shorts or shots. This is just too unclear. So I would love to be able to have a full interpretation of this, but this makes it impossible. But as you look with words like gangsters, it seems very clear that's what it says next to it. Extort, kidnap, it seems very clear that that's what those words are. Having completely abysmal handwriting myself does help me, I think, understand this a bit more. And as you can see, the name with the $sign, BLECH, could be an L, I suppose, but I would think BLECHNIL or something along that line, or that last L could actually be an S. When we look at all of this together, it seems pretty clear that his goal was to get out of there, and he was thinking about all of the different logistics of doing that. Now we're going to briefly look at 2 more documents. These will be quick, but they do give a little bit more color to what we just looked at. Now this next document right here, I'm not going to bother reading through all this. I don't think it's of consequence, but this is basically him complaining about being in prison. But then when we flip it upside down, which is down here, it comes out with something else. This does seem a bit more relevant. So at the top, it says something about data. That's unclear, but we do have the years 2002 to 2005. We have 2 initials below that, which I would assume are names, but maybe they stand for something else. But once again, they are coded. He does not want this to be obvious what he's talking about. But the more significant part is directly below that. Jail out equals 10. Now that seems pretty clear. He's talking about getting out of jail. Now, what does the 10 stand for? Is he paying somebody $10 million? Is it 10 o'clock? What is 10? All we know is that he is saying jail out equals 10. And I think that's extremely consequential, particularly given the context of the other page we looked at. Now below it, some of this is written very clearly, but it's unclear what he's referring to. So he says nothing at all, and then the last word, straw, show. I just can't read those middle letters enough to make that make sense. And then below that, no, it looks like it says no sign me, but it definitely says no something me. So this obviously pairs together with the jail out equals 10, but he just writes so strangely, it's impossible to give you full context, and I don't want to make any major assumptions about what this is saying. So now this is the last page, blankets, AVR, and Medi, and then it says watch, exclamation point. Now this is very interesting because he had an excessive amount of blankets in his prison cell. We know that. That's very well documented. That was acknowledged in the OIG report, actually. So the fact that he had excessive blankets is a fact. AVR, the cameras were not working. So we know for a fact the cameras did not work at that time. And the last one is Medi, which is how people that think he escaped would have done it, would have been through medical. Then he says watch, exclamation point. So what is it that he's watching for? Something to do with the blankets, the AVR, or the Medi. But those are 3 of the big things that had to be taken care of if he was actually going to pull off something like this. So I think this page, despite the fact it's just a couple of words, could potentially be very consequential. All right, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of what we saw today. I know it's hard to read. I know it's confusing, but there does seem to be some logic to it. There does seem to be some real thought put behind it, and it does seem to be that he was trying to work through the logistics of how to escape. Now, whether or not you think that he escaped or was murdered, he certainly seems to be planning for the future. He was someone that was actively thinking ahead. He seemed to have hope that there was a way out of this situation. So I think the official report on how he died continues to remain the least likely. If you have any thoughts about this, or if you have a different interpretation of any of this information, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'm very curious if anybody else has figured out any other pieces to this puzzle. I am continuing to work on other videos about the Epstein files, so if there's anything else you want me to analyze regarding the Epstein files, also let me know about that. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to.
Relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark told the Washington Post, as reported in 2019, they were good friends. I know Trump is trying to distance himself, but they were. He added that Trump used to comp Epstein's mother and aunt at one of Trump's Atlantic City casino hotels. When a Post reporter sought further details, Mark Epstein hung up. When Jeffrey Epstein's Little Black Book was made public a few years prior, it listed numbers for many celebrities, and there were several numbers for Trump, his family, and associates. Epstein and Trump reportedly had a falling out in 2004, perhaps very late in the year, as Vice News published photos of Epstein's message book from that November, which showed Trump had left 2 messages for him. The 2020 book The Grifters Club, about Mar-a-Lago, alleged that Trump kicked Epstein out of the club after he made an advance on the teenage daughter of another member. This was according to another member named George Lombardi, who's a close friend of Trump and at one point his neighbor at Trump Tower. The Washington Post report suggests that a Palm Beach mansion came in between them, which led to their split. But in July 2025, Trump himself said that their fight was over Epstein poaching workers from his club at Mar-a-Lago.
For years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth.
Trump repeated this version of events to reporters aboard Air Force One.
No, he took people that worked for me, and I told him don't do it anymore, and he did it. And I said, stay the hell out of here.
When pressed, he gets...
Safety.
Вон оно вы! Шалава!
Gonna fuck with me, dumbass. Take your ammo.
fuck with me!
GPU. Oh yeah. Fuck yeah. Free GPU. Yeah. The old crawl away home method. Crawling until my Ooh. You got imp left. When you're too good a detective, you get kicked. When you get imp, you leave. Safety. No drugs right now. If I pop any drugs, I'm wasting them. Something that I can drop. Literally 3 kilograms is all I need to drop. Like 2 kilograms. But I don't have anything that's 2 kilograms. Midnight. Hi, baby. He's a good girl. Midnight. What up? El Belakoski. Got that bitch with a headshot? Hell yeah. Huh? The baby. Ooh. What up? It was just a kick, fam. It's just a kick, fam. I don't like kick fam people. It pisses me off. Kick fam are people who are streaming and then they tab up other streamers and they'll drop like a comment so that it's like active viewership, but they're not actually here. Pisses me off a little bit. Gotta hit the gym really quick. The only gym I ever hit. I don't know how the fuck I landed that last one. It's only walked away with a mild muscle pain. Okay, so I gotta run customs again. Pair. What the exact myth bust was, but for some reason I just recalled this episode of Mythbusters where they tested whether or not keeping your toothbrush in a cabinet actually mattered, and it doesn't. You're gonna get fecal matter on it regardless if you have your toothbrush in the bathroom. Or you know. Basically, long story short, you gotta brush your teeth in the kitchen if you don't want to get poopy on your teeth. Oh, Shelby likes poop teeth.
It's angry at the reporter.
What was meant by being
Who are you with?
me?
Yeah.
I'm the travel pool, but I'm with NBC News.
NBC fake news. Okay. NBC's one of the worst.
Together with his Truth Social posts, we can see that this is a sore subject for Trump, and he likes to deflect attention away from it. In the days that followed, Trump fumed on Truth Social not only at Democrats, but also the most vocal Republicans calling for the release of all Epstein-related files held by the Justice Department. Despite his suggestion that he would release files related to the disgraced financier, by July 2025, Donald Trump was talking about, quote, the Jeffrey Epstein hoax.
I call it the Epstein hoax.
On the 12th of July, he asked, what's going on with my boys and, in some cases, gals? They're all going after Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is doing a fantastic job. We're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening. We have a perfect administration, the talk of the world, and selfish people are trying to hurt it. All over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein. For years, it's Epstein, over and over again. In the penultimate sentence, he says to not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about. Many users on Truth Social were taken aback and expressed their disappointment with the president. One response, with more than 15,000 likes, reads, this statement breaks my heart, Mr. President.
Oh, speaking of Diddy and Epstein, do you know why Diddy was never on any of Epstein's in any emails or on any lists? Because parallel lines don't intersect. Parallel lines never cross. Because they're both human sex traffickers. Individually, they're both sex traffickers. Their paths never cross.
So the Victoria's Secret fucking person, and they're
That was facilitated by Les Wexner. That's different. You're talking. So Les Wexner, right, funded Abercrombie. He funded Victoria's Secret. Both of which are used to traffic humans. Okay? Diddy, so Les Wexner worked in the fashion trafficking. Diddy works in the music trafficking. Like the music area, the musical industry, the music industry. They both trafficked different things. Well, mostly different things. Diddy was never brought on pedophile charges. I mean, besides like Justin Bieber, like there's not a whole lot of accusations of pedophilia with Diddy. Now that I actually think about it, you know, like the one case that people could pin on him is like for pedophilia would be Justin Bieber. Well, sexual assault is sexual assault, except for when it's sexual assault on a minor.
I'm pretty sure there's been more minors.
Let's see.
And 9 crazy.
Oh yeah, 1991, 9-year-old. That's crazy. 9 years old is fucking insane. I mean, like, anybody under the age of like fucking 12 is even more insane to think about because they are literally
Where
babies.
the fuck are their parents?
Paid off on vacation or something.
I voted for
Huh?
The two more sexual assault lawsuits have been filed against Diddy Combs this week, both accusing the billionaire of grooming sexual misconduct and
I
retaliatory.
think I just looked at that one. Talking about
Plaintiffs that were underage. These two suits are separate filings. Both assert that Combs abused his power and influence, forcing minors into sexual activity by promising them stardom in the music industry.
Yeah, see, that was Diddy's thing. It was like, I'll make you blow up. You'll be so rich, and you'll be next to me,
So
Diddy.
in 2005, there was a 10-year-old.
And in 2000 or 1991, it was a 9-year-old.
Pushed the boy on the hotel room bed, Combs and pulled him out of his pants and kissed it.
That's crazy. Okay, never mind. And Diddy freaking on little boys too.
Serious encounters and 3-day audition. That was during making the band.
A 3-day audition. That sounds sussy baka.
He maintained via his attorneys that he never sexually assaulted or trafficked any man or woman.
we want the elite exposed. You promised us that. Now it's our fault because we want that promise fulfilled and call Pam out every time she lies? What else has she lied to us about? Other supporters threatened to turn against him, with one saying, "It appears you or a loved one was in on it, and you want this to go away." Days later, on July 16th, Trump
Hour?
I'm finished.
Oh no! Oh my god, are you fucking kidding me? Please tell me that fucking...
doubled down. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, he wrote. And my past supporters have bought into this bullshit hook, line, and sinker. All these people want to talk about with strong prodding by the fake news and the success-starved Dems is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work.
Huh?
Don't even think about talking of our incredible
What?
and unprecedented success, because
OJ,
I don't
probably
want their
not.
support anymore.
Who do you think you'd be
Once
with,
again,
Diddy?
the response was awash with criticism. One response with more than 4,000 likes reads, "You're running cover for something very nefarious and you want us to look the other way. Not going to happen. You've lost my trust." Another response with more than 9,000 likes asks, "Why was Epstein in prison then? How about Ghislaine? For a hoax? I don't think so. This is the hill we all die on." It's clear Trump was bothered by the pressure to release
Before you go
the
to sleep, can you get my
files,
vape?
especially from those in his own party. In November, a House committee released emails that named Trump, including one where Epstein himself alleges that Trump, quote, "knew about the girls." On the same day that these emails were made public, Trump railed against Democrats who he accused of attempting to distract from the government shutdown. The Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown, and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. Trump was especially incensed with Representatives Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene. He announced on November 15th that he was withdrawing his support for the latter. His ranting didn't end there, as he continued to post about her for days, calling her a traitor and a disgrace. She even resigned. On November 20th, Trump was still posting lengthy diatribes about the Epstein files, saying he'd signed a bill to release them. The Epstein Files Transparency Act required the Attorney General to release Epstein-related files within 30 days, with exceptions including material relevant to ongoing investigations, practically guaranteeing that they would not all be released. 2 days after this post,
Thank you,
Trump
honey.
brings up fraudulent
You're such
money
a
laundering activity in
sweetie.
Minnesota,
I love
saying he's
you.
terminating
Oh my
temporary protected
gosh,
status
you're
for
so
Somalis. On the 25th, Trump
perfect. You're
pardons a
my
turkey, per the
only
White House
one
tradition,
and
before the
only.
Thanksgiving holiday. A
I
few days
love
later, 2
you,
National Guard troops are shot in Washington. Trump expresses his outrage on social media. He speaks to reporters a day later about the incident.
The suspect is an Afghan national.
After his talk, which covered a number of issues, he opened the floor to the press.
Many of these people are criminals. Many of these people are people that shouldn't be here.
Trump then abruptly pivots to Somalis after complaining about Afghan nationals.
What's taking place between that, if you look at Somalia, they're taking over Minnesota.
What do the Somalians have to do with this Afghan guy who shot the national?
Nothing, but Somalians have caused a lot of trouble. They're ripping us off for a lot of money. There's a tremendous amount of money going back to Somalia.
Trump doubles down on Somalis in Minnesota on Thanksgiving Day. After a long and fuming screed against foreigners in the United States, he wrote, "Hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roving the streets looking for prey." Picking Minnesota was not difficult for the president, as the state contains 2 people he loathes, including Governor Tim Walz and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who has accused the president of having a bizarre obsession with her. On December 2nd, Trump is asked by a reporter about the fraud scandal in Minnesota and whether Governor Tim Walz should resign. Local and national outlets had reported on fraud in the state for years, especially after a fraudulent food scheme raked in hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars. Trump is quick to say that not only should Walz resign, but he also launches into another tirade against Omar and then Somalis generally.
I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country.
That same day, the New York Times reported that new ICE operation is said to target Somali migrants in Twin Cities. The directive reportedly came immediately after Trump's remarks. At the time, the new operation involved 100 officers and agents. 2 days later, the Department of Homeland Security referred to this deployment as Operation Metro Surge. The choice to target Somali Americans with immigration enforcement officers struck me personally as odd, since it was my understanding that Somalis are not known for entering the country illegally in significant numbers. In fact, the overwhelming majority of them are U.S. citizens. On December 12th, the House Oversight Committee disclosed a number of photographs containing images of Jeffrey Epstein with Steve Bannon, Noam Chomsky, Woody Allen, Larry Summers, Richard Branson, Alan Dershowitz, Bill Clinton, Ehud Barak, and Donald Trump. The deadline for the release of the Epstein files, pursuant to the Epstein Files Transparency Act, came on December 19th. The Justice Department released some, but by no means all of the files. The documents that were released were met with criticism and even mockery due to the extent of the redactions, some of which could be easily bypassed by simply highlighting the underlying text copying and pasting.
Select the whole paragraph, copy and paste into a Word document. You can actually see what was underneath those redactions. And it was uploaded by the Virgin Islands Attorney General.
The dump included hundreds of pages that were completely blacked out. Photos that were released on the 19th included Epstein with, perhaps most notably, former U.S. President Bill Clinton. But more problems for Trump came with a subsequent release on the 23rd of December, in which he was again mentioned. In announcing the release of the files on Twitter, the Department of Justice preempted criticism by stating that claims made against Trump in the files were untrue and sensationalist. The department's suggestion that they were committed to transparency earned the Post a rebuke in the form of a community note. The note criticized DOJ for missing the deadline to release all files related to Epstein and for their, quote, excessive redactions.
They give me their photos of me, too. Everybody was friendly with this guy, either friendly or not friendly, but he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places. The head of Harvard was his best friend, Larry Summers. And Bill Clinton was a friend of his, but everybody was.
One email contained in the files, sent in 2020 by an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, observes Trump flew on Epstein's plane, quote, many more times than previously has been reported. This was before Epstein's file logs were made public in 2021, which showed that the current president was a passenger on at least 7 flights between 1993 and 1997. Which contradicted Trump's earlier claims that he had never ridden on Epstein's plane. Also included in the files were mentions of co-conspirators of Epstein.
Yeah, okay. Game could not close fast enough earlier, so that death did count.
Say hello to my little friend. Piece of shit!
Both of the dumbass. Good ass throw right there, goddamn. Landed right at their fucking feet. Two PMCs? No way.
Yo, what up? What up, meow meow?
Oh, it's gotta be fucking 50 durability. Yo, is anybody watching at the moment? Say something in chat, let me know.
Gonna kill you all!
W, still awake?
Where is he? Don't fuck with me! Shit!
Fuck, no, 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 no. Oh, the fucking team of 3, man. Goddamn. Fuck, I totally forgot to drop all my... There. This is my plan on trying to go fuck Kilva.
I'm injured slightly.
Fuck.
Сука ты, блядь, не упырь, блядь, гнида, блядь.
Did I go the wrong fucking way? More stem.
Yep. Appreciate it. Thank you. See you tomorrow.